The floor was shining, polished to a mirror-like glow, but no one noticed. People rarely did. The man bent over the mop bucket, hands rough from years of chemicals and scrubbing, wasn't surprised. Janitors were invisible to most of the world. He had long accepted that reality, though it didn't make the days any easier. Daniel worked in silence, his back aching, his head filled with the echo of the words his landlord had said that morning: "One more late payment, and you're out." He had smiled politely, nodded, and promised he'd get the money. But he knew promises weren't enough anymore. He needed every single hour of this job just to survive. The mall was alive with chatter. Heels clicking against the floor he'd just cleaned, music leaking from storefronts, the smell of roasted coffee and cinnamon rolls swirling through the air. Yet for him, it was just another long day of blending into the background, doing work no one praised unless it wasn't done. Still, Daniel believed in dignity, even in the smallest of tasks. He remembered something his late wife used to tell him: "It's not about who sees you, it's about who you are when no one does." Those words were his compass. That afternoon, as he pushed his mop down the bright corridor, something broke the rhythm. A sharp voice rose above the usual hum of the mall. "Hey, watch where you're going, lady." Daniel's head turned. A small group of well-dressed men in tailored suits stood near the coffee shop. One of them, tall with slick back hair and a smug grin, had just spilled his drink across the counter. The young woman he shouted at looked startled, clutching a tote bag against her chest. She wore jeans, sneakers, and a simple sweater, ordinary, unassuming, the kind of customer people barely remembered after passing by. "Yeah, I'm sorry," she stammered, stepping back. "I didn't mean to bump you. Didn't mean to." The man sneered, brushing his stained sleeve with irritation. "Do you know how much this jacket costs?" "More than your rent, I bet." His friends laughed, egging him on. Daniel's jaw tightened. He had seen this scene too many times. The powerful belittling the powerless just to feel taller. The young woman's cheeks burned with embarrassment as she tried to apologize again, but the men weren't listening. They wanted a spectacle. The mall employees nearby noticed but looked away. No one wanted trouble, not with men who looked wealthy and influential. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He should walk past, keep his head down, protect his job. But his feet betrayed him, moving forward before his brain caught up. "That's enough," he said firmly, his voice cutting through the mockery. The group turned, sizing him up. Just a janitor with a mop, wearing a faded blue uniform and old sneakers. He wasn't a threat in their eyes, at least not yet. "Excuse me?" The tall man scoffed. "You heard me," Daniel replied, planting his mop upright. "She said sorry." "Let it go." Laughter erupted. One of the men elbowed the tall one. "You gonna take that from a custodian?" The tall man sneered. "This is none of your business, old man." "Decency is everyone's business," Daniel shot back. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of conviction. The young woman's eyes widened. No one had ever defended her in public like that, and not in such a simple, genuine way. But the men weren't about to back down. The tall one stepped closer, close enough that Daniel could smell the expensive cologne masking something sour underneath. "You must not like your job very much," he said slowly, each word dripping with threat. "Because if you did, you'd mind your own business." Daniel didn't flinch. "I like being able to look at myself in the mirror more." The words hung in the air. The young woman's lips parted slightly, almost in awe. Then the manager of the coffee shop appeared, looking flustered. He whispered something to the suited men, clearly worried about a scene. After a few more muttered insults, the group finally turned away, strutting off like they had better places to be. Daniel exhaled, his shoulders relaxing. He turned to the young woman. "You okay?" She nodded quickly, her eyes soft with gratitude. "Yes, a broken bath, thank you." "Really? Don't mention it," he said, lifting his mop again. "Just a broken bar. Some people forget how to be human." She opened her mouth to say more, but Daniel was already walking away, blending back into the crowd, disappearing the way janitors do. What he didn't know, or what no one knew, was that this ordinary woman was not ordinary at all. Her name was Evelyn Hart, and she was the newly appointed CEO of the very corporation that owned half the stores in this mall. She had come incognito, dressed simply, wanting to observe how her company's spaces treated everyday people. And she had just witnessed something rare, a man who risked his own standing to defend a stranger, with no expectation of reward. But fate was not kind to men like Daniel. An hour later, as he returned to the janitor's closet, his supervisor was waiting. A short, sharp man with glasses perched at the end of his nose, arms crossed tightly. "Daniel," he barked. "My office." Now. Daniel set the mop aside and followed. The office smelled of stale coffee and ink. Papers were stacked in messy piles across the desk. The supervisor didn't sit. He preferred to stand when delivering bad news. "I just got a call," he said flatly. "Apparently, you decided to play hero out there. Caused a scene with some very important clients." Daniel frowned. "They were harassing a customer. I couldn't just You couldn't just keep your mouth shut?" The supervisor snapped. "Do you know who those men are? Investors. People with influence. People who can make one phone call and ruin this place. And you think your opinion matters?" "My opinion didn't matter," Daniel replied quietly. "But treating people with respect does." The supervisor's face hardened. "This isn't a charity, Daniel. This is a business. And you've just jeopardized it." Daniel's stomach sank. He saw it coming, but hearing the words still pierced. "You're fired," the supervisor said. "Turn in your badge. Collect your things." The world seemed to tilt. Fired. Just like that. For standing up. Daniel didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply nodded, turned in his badge, and walked out with the same quiet dignity he had carried every day on the job. As he left through the staff exit, the young woman's face flashed in his mind, the gratitude in her eyes, the way her voice had trembled with relief. At least she had been safe. That mattered more than a paycheck. But reality was cruel. He had no income now, no way to pay the rent, no way to keep his daughter's dreams alive. His little girl, Emma, deserved better than this constant cycle of struggle. Still, he kept walking, one foot in front of the other, carrying the invisible weight of the world. What he didn't know was that Evelyn Hart hadn't left the mall. She had seen the confrontation. She had seen his firing. And her heart, usually shielded by layers of boardroom politics, couldn't let it go. Because in Daniel, she had seen something she hadn't seen in years, something money could never buy. Humanity. And she wasn't about to let it slip away.